Hello everyone, I want to start off by thanking you for, I'm assuming if you're sitting here with me that you saw the title to this video and that you've actually clicked on it to sit here and listen to me. I decided that I wanted to sit down and give a more in-depth life update versus like sitting down and putting on makeup. Hi, my name is DaLin. I normally have a makeup channel. This is normally makeup content, but today I don't think it would feel right to sit there and like put on makeup and try to get all of this off my chest. This is actually my second time trying to film this video. I think the first video ended up being, I filmed it and edited it and it was over 20 minutes long and it was just full of me mostly crying. But today I'm gonna try again. I'm feeling a little bit more composed today and a little bit more centered, so I'm hoping that it makes for a more organized like headspace for myself. But yeah, I wanted to sit down and tell you about kind of life. Really, it feels like most of this year of 2020, but I'll start at the beginning. My husband and I, my husband Beau, we've been together over 15 years, but we've been married 10 years, over 10 years. And we decided that at the end of like last year, towards the end of last year, that we wanted to start getting serious and start trying to have a family. So we started trying to get pregnant. And in April, we were really surprised and excited when we saw like the faintest little like positive on like an at-home pregnancy test. And we were so excited, and we're also horrible at keeping secrets. So we ended up telling our mom and dad, my mom and dad, his mom and dad, and we shared the news just with them. I know personally that first pregnancy test was just a whirlwind of emotion. I was really excited, and also there was like a ton of anxiety that hit me at once in terms of like, oh wow, this is a lot, like our lives are gonna change. We've been together and married for over 10 years and we're used to this dynamic, we're used to each other in this way. And I knew that when you introduce a child into this dynamic, things are gonna change forever. So I had a good bit of anxiety the first day, but I managed to calm down some later the next day. But unfortunately, in that same fourth week, I ended up miscarrying, and that was really hard. I think at that time, the physical symptoms weren't the worst of it. Like there were some physical symptoms at that time, but it was really early on. And I think the hardest time that I had was that I felt like I was heartbroken, but I also felt like I had just let my parents down and let Beau down in some way. I know that like for my parents, it's their first set of like grandkids. Beau's parents, and it's Beau's first child. I knew that meant something to them, and I remember their faces when we shared that news, and it was really hard to call back and break the bad news, And honestly, I'm doing really well not crying right now, because when I think back to both of these miscarriages, it's one of the hardest things has been like parent and telling your parents about them, because I know for me, I didn't grow up with my last grandparent passed away when I was 3, so I don't really have a memory of them, and I have this expectation that I wanted it to be different for my children, and there's this like fear now that maybe I won't ever be successful, but I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So anyways, after the first miscarriage, I scheduled an appointment here with the doctor in Sweden. I went and saw someone, and they confirmed the pregnancy was completely miscarried, which was a good thing. We didn't have to worry about having like a D&C or scrape or something like that. So, on some level I was relieved. And the doctor at that time told me, wow, you must have really noticed this very early, and most women might not have even realized they were pregnant if you found out in your 4th week. And I told her, yeah, which is another thing that I wanted to mention about myself. I'm very, very aware of my body, and I like know when I ovulate. I know when I'm going to ovulate, like before I notice symptoms before ovulation. I know which side I ovulate from, like whether my left or right ovary releases an egg. Like I'm very, very aware of my body. And so when the doctor said that to me, I kind of took it as, okay, maybe I need to, I took it as I internalized it the wrong way. I internalized it as almost like I don't really have a reason to feel this sad. Like if most women wouldn't notice this, then maybe I shouldn't make it a big deal. And I kind of ate those emotions in a way. Like I stuffed them down. I tried to pretend like nothing happened. I know that even some of my closest friends that I talk to on a regular basis, like I don't think it came up in conversation with them until several weeks later, which was just, it was really odd to admit something like that and then also try to like sweep it under the rug. Thankfully I have good friends who were trying to make me aware of that. And I'm also aware that in hindsight, you know, this probably wasn't the best way to handle it. I can see that since April, my anxiety's been heightened, my struggle with depression has been heightened, my feeling alone has been heightened, because that's one thing. After that first miscarriage, it was so difficult to be here. We didn't tell any friends in here in Sweden about it, really, and it was just really hard to feel so isolated. But my husband and I did eventually start trying again, pretty much immediately, and we were really surprised and excited in August. So in August, when we landed on August 3rd to go home, and on August 4th, I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. And compared to, like, it would have been the same day of my period that the first pregnancy, like when I tested the first time, and that line in the first pregnancy was so faint. This line was way darker, and I was really excited. I felt the HCG in my body. Like, I could feel, like, I never got like symptoms of being nauseous or anything, but I could feel other symptoms. And it just felt like maybe this time was going to be different. It felt like these lines, we tested every so often, and they kept darkening. I knew I felt symptoms, and we thought that after one miscarriage, maybe things will be on our side. And because we were home, we almost didn't want to tell our family again, because we knew how painful it was the first time, but we knew also that we were going to be home for an entire month. And if we didn't tell them, that they were going to find out probably one way or another. I mean, for example, my dad was like die hard on getting me on the boat and getting me on like a knee board, and I didn't really have another excuse other than like, sorry Dad, I really can't do that because I'm pregnant. So we just let the cat out of the bag and told them up front again, like, we're pregnant. And we carried for a couple more weeks just fine. And unfortunately, it was on my birthday that I started to like spot really lightly. I tried to remain calm, but I was like pretty triggered in terms of anxiety, because I remember the first time that I miscarried, right before I actually miscarried, I did spot for a little bit. And so I tried to tell myself, you know, calm down, stay calm. And I think I did a pretty good job of staying calm with all things considered. But, you know, you go on the internet and you can find anything and everything that says what you want it to say. You know, I could find websites that say spotting is normal. I could find websites that say spotting is not normal. So I just didn't know what to believe. And after a couple days, I just had this gut feeling like I would feel better if I could see the pregnancy, like see the baby, hear a heartbeat. Like that's all I want to do. So we're in the US, obviously visiting family, so we don't have healthcare in the US. Our healthcare is here in Sweden. So our only option was to kind of search around, and to be able to find like prices listed is really hard. So we ended up finding like a Baby Waves, like 3D Baby Waves kind of clinic, and they had different packages, and one of the packages was for like early on in the pregnancy, in the 6-7 week mark, where you can hear your baby's heartbeat for the first time and like get a little picture of the womb and everything. So we all made an appointment. My family went, or my mom and dad went with me. My mother-in-law and father-in-law went. Of course, my husband, we figured it might be one of the only chances that we have to show them, like to bring them to a doctor appointment, because they can't come once we're in Sweden. And we went to the doctor's appointment, or we went to the technician's appointment and got the ultrasound done. And she measured my gestational sac at 4.5 weeks. And at the time, I knew that I was 6 weeks, 6 days, or right at 7 weeks, and I knew something wasn't right. She kept telling me, I mentioned, you know, are you sure that this isn't like weird? Like, it seems to me that it, you know, I could understand if I was like a week off on my dates, maybe, but not this far off, not the discrepancy of 4 weeks, 5 days, and 7 weeks. And so everybody left that appointment. All the parents were like, yeah, this is good news. Y'all calm down. Bo and I, my husband and I, he's a scientist. I'm meticulous about dates. And we just had this gut feeling that something wasn't right. So later that night, I know I had a massive like panic freak out of like, I just knew that this was bad news. I knew that this wasn't what it should be. Also, she measured the gestational sac at 4 weeks, 5 days, but there was no fetal pole in it. No, and she just kept telling us, your dates are wrong. The baby's not big enough yet to have a heartbeat. Come back in another 2 weeks or so, and I promise you'll see it. The position in your uterus is good, everything's good, but I just knew deep down that like that wasn't right. And sure enough, sadly, the next day I actually started miscarrying. And you know, when I filmed this video the last time, I think I went into too much detail, because every time I watch it back, I feel that panic again, and I talked a little bit maybe too much about it. So I'll just say this about it. The miscarriage actually, while it took place over about 8 days, I know that I bled for about 8 days. The feelings of it are awful and traumatic, and it was really jarring. And as difficult as it was for me to experience those feelings, because again, I'm so sensitive and I could feel everything, I could feel this tissue move through me, it was horrendous, like absolutely traumatic. There's one thing during that time that I did for myself that I was really glad that I did, and I'm sorry again if this is too much sharing, but I remember Bo was with me the first time that I knew I felt something move, and I asked him to come in the bathroom with me. So right when I started miscarrying, he was there, and I knew that wasn't going to be it. I knew that there was going to be more. And so one thing that I was really glad that I did for myself is that I asked him to, every time I needed to go to the bathroom, if he would come with me, because I knew that I didn't want to be the only one who had to see all of that. Like, you have to wear pads during this kind of thing, and you just see everything. It's really hard not to. And so I didn't want all of that. I didn't want to be the only one housing all of that and feeling all of this. Like, it was too much. So I made sure to ask Bo if he would come with me, and to this day, like, I know it must have been so hard for him, and because it was so hard for me, but I'm so glad that he said yes. I'm so glad he never hesitated, and I'm so glad that I thought to do that for myself, because it is a heavy weight to bear, and having to not do it alone was really helpful. But yeah, like I said, yeah, the miscarriage itself was pretty much over in about 8 days after once it really started, which was, you know, a lot. It's like a normal period for most women is 4 to 5 days, and so it feels like it's never gonna end. I mean, sometimes your period feels like it's never gonna end, but like this, it felt like it went on for so long. And then I remember we got back here, so we pretty much got back here when I finally stopped miscarrying. And I went to a doctor, and before I even went to the doctor, I thought that would be it. I thought that those would be all the physical symptoms that I'd have, but I'm still having other physical symptoms, not dealing with bleeding or anything, but occasionally I get these really intense cramps. Like, they feel like more intense period cramps. So they started being out short. Like, I know the first one I had was probably less than 5 minutes long, but they were so intense, like such intense cramping, that I couldn't stand, I couldn't sit. I had trouble like getting into a comfortable position, but it would last really like 5 minutes wasn't too bad, and then it would go away and it would be completely relaxed, like nothing happened. But like so severe period cramp almost. And I've never had a child, so I don't know if that's like somewhat similar to a contraction, but that's what I would think, because they were so much more intense than a period cramp. It felt like what I would imagine a slight contraction would feel like. And so I had a couple of those, and each time I had one, they kind of got a little longer. And just last week I had one more, which it's been like 3-4 weeks since since all of this happened, and I'm still having a couple of these like contraction style cramps off and on. But the last one that I had was literally, it lasted an hour, and it was so bad that I could not stand. I could barely walk to get in the bed. I couldn't sit. I finally got laid down into the bed, and I thought that would relax me. It hurt so bad to lay on my back that I ended up having to lay on my side in like the fetal position, and I was just like shaking and crying. It hurt so bad. I can't explain to you how intense these cramps are. And everything that I read online says that that it's normal and that it's just your uterus trying to like shrink back down. But let me tell you, when you think you're done with the physical sensations and you have like these moments of really intense pain, it's crazy. I mentioned it to my doctor here when they checked me out the second time after the second miscarriage, and he said, yeah, it happens, it's normal, don't worry about it. But it's really odd. But yeah, I realize that this video is probably just as long as the other one, But I do think I've detailed a lot of the physical sensations. But again, I just want to run through some of the mental things really quick, which I know I mentioned loneliness and just feeling really bad. And I think after the first miscarriage, it was, I knew, like, don't blame my body. It was easy to convince myself, like, this is super normal. It happens to so many women, even though it doesn't get talked about. Like, it was easy to believe that then. After the second miscarriage, I'm having such a hard time believing that. I mean, like, logically, it's a fact, and I know that I can't change that statistic that like 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage, but it's so hard to wrap your head around, because on some level you kind of want an answer. Like, on some level I almost wish that I knew the answer, that what was wrong was with me, because maybe I could fix it. You know, being told multiple times that you just have bad luck, that you're both healthy. We actually went to a fertility doctor between the 2 miscarriages and everything, and they all gave us the all clear, like, you're both healthy, everything's good, y'all just have bad luck. And that's so hard to hear. It's so hard to hear. And it's one of those things, it's like, do I believe that? Or, like, do I need more? Because I just want a problem that I can fix. Like, it just would be easier to wrap my head around if there was something I could actually fix. But yeah, this is one of those things that I think it's important to acknowledge to myself that at the moment, there's nothing I can do to fix it. I'm trying to do some emotional healing and spend some time treating my body better. I know that I noticed even after the first miscarriage that I've stopped taking care of myself in a way. So even if I think that logically that I haven't really blamed myself, I've stopped taking care of myself in the way that I know I should be. So I'm trying to do some little things to make sure that I get back into treating myself better. I'm trying to be patient with myself. You know, occasionally I get waves of grief of, like, just, you know, you never thought that seeing a baby could make you, like, need to go collect yourself, but I've had those moments too of, like, seeing a child, and I don't think I've ever felt that much fear about a family. It always felt like something that I would have in time, and all of a sudden after 2 miscarriages it feels like you start to judge yourself in terms of, why did I wait this long? You know, I'm in my 30s. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I did this to myself. Maybe because we weren't ready before then, or before this, or maybe it's our fault, you know? And so I know that's unfair, but I at least find myself picking myself apart like that, and I know I have a tendency to do that anyways. But yeah, I thought that I would sit down and share this kind of thing. I know there have been some other people lately who've shared stories similar, and I admire people who are brave enough to talk about it. It's a really, really, really hard thing to do, and it's an awful experience to ever have to go through. So anyways, I think that I'm gonna stop this video here, but I appreciate everyone. I wanted to say thank you for, if you're someone who is, you know, a friend of mine here, and you have no idea, if you've interacted with me on this platform on YouTube, if I did not have YouTube, I don't know what I would do. Having had 2 miscarriages, and honestly after the second one, I feel like all I've done, like, this has been just an area to throw myself into. It's social, it's healthy, everybody on here is so nice and, like, makes me feel, like, uplifted, even if they don't know what I'm going through, and it's been such, like, a safe space for me. And so I just want to thank y'all. If y'all are watching this and you are someone who has interacted with me on here, I really appreciate you, and I can't tell you how much just, like, being on here really helps me out. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.